Okay, well, hello. Let's get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Dr. Dori Narbo, and for those of you who don't know me, I'm an author, a clinical researcher, and I will be your host on this call tonight. So thank you for joining us, and we have two unique products, one of which you've heard me refer to as a first-level foundational supplement. And last week we talked about heavy metals and and how they seriously can affect your immune system, potentially, giving harmful effects such as release of inflammatory cytokines. We've also touched on cardiovascular meta-analysis with over 348,000 participants showing that exposures to heavy metals such as arsenic, lead, cadmium, copper is associated with increased risk for cardiovascular disease and coronary heart disease. We've also talked about meta-analysis for obesity with over 350,000 participants. I mean, these are major meta-analysis that is for the obesity, also concluded a direct causal relationship between heavy metals and obesity. So the bottom line here is that you can increase your immune function by decreasing heavy metals. So we've invited you to this call to learn about two innovative products, one called Cleanslate, the other is called Zero-In, which I think is really important now with everybody, like when we talk about like cortisol levels. I guess, Clayton, you can talk about that. And so again, like I said, Cleanslate is a first level foundational product. There's really nothing like it on the market. And so Clayton, without any further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to the group. And Clayton is the CEO and the founder of Root, and he's going to go ahead and tell us about these fantastic products.
I'm going to try to find my visuals here again because I seem to have disappeared. You can see me, right?
So we're having, I can see you.
I got me. Okay. So and I think we'll dive into a couple components, but like you mentioned, heavy metals and environmental toxins are the root cause, which is why we have that name, because our focus is really getting down to the root of the issues. But the importance of cleaning up our environment, I think, is becoming more and more prevalent now. Or if it's not more prevalent, people are becoming more aware of it because they're seeing indicators of outside invaders that are more current, right? We can talk about the viral issues people are really concerned about, but this is a warning sign, not as much to the issues of viruses and environmental toxins, but also, I don't know if you can read that, but this is more of the issue that these virus issues that we're seeing, and even the environmental toxicology issues and environmental toxin issues that are outside of us, it's not the problem. We are the problem here. So our focus and your focus, if you're watching this, you get to share this with anybody, or if you're having a conversation with anybody that's really concerned about what's going on in today's world, you can't control it. It doesn't matter if it's viral exposure or things that are going on outside. It doesn't matter if it's 5G. It doesn't matter if it's the heavy metals in your environment, the outside environment. You can't control those things. What you can only control is what's in this environment. And so if you want to be an environmentalist, you really have to be an internal environmentalist, and that's what our focus is really predicated on. The Cleanslate is using what nature created to clean up the environment. So really, one of the primary mechanisms in clinoptilolite, which is the zeolite that we use, and I think we're going to geek out on some stuff here at Dory's request because people are starting to ask some questions about this, that this crystal, this class of minerals, which are zeolites, are very effective at remediating different toxins and different things from the environment. What makes clinoptilolite so unique is that you have this naturally negatively charged crystal structure that's like quartz that is a sieve for grabbing onto and binding heavy metals, viral particles, glyphosate, now that it's become prevalent in the last 40 years. And it's funny that it has this ability to bind that when this crystal was initially being formed hundreds of millions of years ago. You know, some of these chemicals that are really destroying our society were never created, but this one natural component has the ability to remediate them. And what makes Cleanslate really special is that we, you know, I've been fortunate over the last 16 years, and my partner, you know, in the process now is a lot smarter than I am. She's been in biotech for over 20 years, and we were able to collaborate to create a process that not only cleans out this cage structure, but also nanotizes fragments into fragment sizes that are bioavailable, but also still capable of grabbing onto and binding a lot of toxins. And I think we'll get into that here pretty quickly. So, Dory, where else do you want to go?
Okay. Let's talk about, well, we've already talked about the benefits. Let's talk about what makes it unique with our little slide.
Okay, so
Courtesy of Christian.
So I'm going to share my screen here. And you're going to have to walk me through this because I have a bunch of stuff pulled up. So I go here, go there, go there. Okay, so you can see my screen.
Mm-hmm.
So first, we'll look at the little green box, and then we'll pull up some truth. Okay, so when we compare other products, and I'll go through these real quick, and then we'll touch on some stuff. And if you guys want to call BS on me, I'll dig into some files and actually show you some things. But ACZ Nano is one of the first suspensions of clinoptilolite on the market, and it's like taking a micronized powder and they mix it in water, and that's what they sell. So the 1 nanometer size is actually incorrect. So part of this leads you into questioning this document in its own right. But this is an advertisement for advanced TRS, which was sold from Cosiva, which is a company that I helped create. So note 1. Advanced TRS is a second version of a product that was actually the sibling to Pure Body, but the creator of Pure Body initially, his name's Tracy Holford, was fired from the company that created Pure Body. So he went over to Cosiva and created his special formula. And so we'll go, I'm going to bounce around these a little bit. Fulvic zeolites, there's humic and fulvic acid, and there's zeolites. You don't get fulvic zeolites. You can mix the two. You can add humic and fulvic acids to zeolites, but they are not one product. So we can throw that one out. I don't know what that is. 11 micrograms, that's a dosage amount. So there's no size analysis that's done there. So we can throw that one out. Cytodetox, I'm actually the creator of that. I founded Metron Nutraceuticals years ago. I divested from the company due to some actions of my ex-partner. But the 13 nanometer size range, I don't believe was correct. But we'll go off of these. ACZ Nano, we touched on. Pure Body claims to be a nanotized solution of clinoptilolite, but the product, when you look at the product, it is not labeled properly and it is not preserved properly. And when you look at the label, and if you want, we can dive into some of these. I can pull up some websites. We can look at some products specifically on why this is important. But what we want to really look at is real science. And Dory, you appreciate this because you're smarter than I am and you're a PhD. So this is a biological and technological scale comparison chart, right? And we'll throw in some clean slate here in a second. But if you're claiming that, we'll say 0.9 nanometers in size. Well, let's see, 0.9 nanometers in size is right about here, which is smaller than DNA strands and about the size of an atom or a little bigger than a single atom. When viruses are up around 10 to 100 nanometers in size. So if we wanted to deal with something that could bind heavy metals and viral fragments and toxins, do you want something that's as small as an atom or as small as DNA? And you're working with a crystalline lattice structure that's like a honeycomb. So if that is broken apart, you still want it in fragment ranges and micron ranges somewhere in here, so it has the ability to work with cells, permeate some membranes. You want it the same size as some of these cells here, but you want it to be able to grab these guys. If you even claim to have something down here, I mean, you're smaller than quantum dots, so, and carbon nanotubes in, true nanotechnology. So this lets you know that if this is true, there's no benefit in using it. And there's been no measurement to validate this. I guarantee it, because they can't measure that. But they're claiming something that's as small as really small molecules. So I'm not going to say they're lying, but I'm saying that I would never put that in my body. And one of the other things that's really important here, when you see this part and they say that it's lab grown, the earth mined zeolites, clinoptilolite in its natural form, if it's mined properly in good places, is generally regarded as safe as a food additive, which means you can consume it. Kaopectate is a clinoptilolite base. You have powders that have been used for decades. It's safe for consumption. And lab-grown zeolites are used in the treatment of the petroleum industry and the tire industry. They're not approved for human consumption. I've not found a single published article that shows that lab-grown or synthetic zeolites are approved for human consumption, because the issue with lab-grown zeolites is that they will have the possibility of leaching heavy metals, aluminum for one, and possibly denaturing in the gut. And so they're not approved for human consumption. So I would never ever want to put any synthetic zeolites in my system. And let's look at this from a nutritional perspective, right? At what point in your life now do you hear people telling you that using a synthetic is better than natural? Do you look at it in your food? No, you don't want synthetic fish. You don't want synthetic chicken. You don't want synthetic beef or pork. You don't want synthetic vegetables. You don't want synthetic fruit, because those are what we like to call decorations, right? They're plastic. So you think, I don't want synthetic nutritional supplements. So why would I put a synthetic product here in my body? That does not make sense. Simple. So I wouldn't do that. We can look at the 13 nanometer size, the 11 microgram size. That's a measurement of amount. And so that one's out. The ACZ Nano and Pure Body claim to be 0.3 microns. So 1 micron is right here, and 0.3 is like 30. So you're right in this range. So they're claiming to be the same size as a virus, which doesn't give you any benefit, and it's too small, because to get this type of lattice structure, this crystalline structure, to something that small, you're basically denaturing the cage structure, which is not something you want to do. So we look at this, and then we can, we don't want that. we can pull up what Cleanslate looks like. Now, granted, I'm not going to make claims, right? I'm just going to show you scanning electron microscope images to show you what the fragments actually look like. So you guys can see these, right? Is that a yes? Did I lose you?
Sorry, yes, we can
You're
see
here.
them. Mhm.
Okay. So let's dive into some of these. This is my favorite stuff. I like to use terms that some people find to be offensive at times, even though they're not offensive. This is like fragment porn. So these are scanning electron microscope images. So this is 2,000 times magnification, looking at the fragments that we create in Cleanslate. So this is 10 microns in size, in width, to give you a comparison with some of the fragment sizes. This is another 2,000 times magnification, 10 microns in size. You can see the particle distribution of all the little fragments that are there. And we'll close this one, we'll close this one. This is 3,000 times magnification, at 5 microns this size. So it gives you, and you can see the porous structure of this little dude, that there's caverns and such where things can get trapped in. Same way, 3,000 times magnification, 5 microns. So when we look here, what were we seeing? We're seeing above 1 micron, and we're anywhere from around 2 to 3, upwards of 100, depending upon fragment sizes. And I'll show you one other thing here. So we'll pull up some of our old particle distribution analysis because we like science. It's the end of March. It's a good thing we're not doing this tomorrow, because then we could say have April Fools, but this is actually real science. So this was some of the original particle distribution analysis of our fragments, and when we first started creating some of the solution. So you can see it starts, we'll go here, at about, where are we? Diameter in microns, 0.877 is our starting fragment range, because you see there's nothing below that, and it says 0, percentage, and under that number is 0.877. So we're going to be right in this range to start with. They're small, they're really small. And we go from 0.877, increasing in size and percentage. You can see under that size. So we get up to here at about 11 microns in size. There's over 50% of the fragments that are under 11 microns. So right in this area. And then these go up to 88 microns. Just right about there. So this is our fragment size range. And those are able to get inside your system and circulate through your system, as we've seen. They still have the cage structure, they still have the right look, and they're able to circulate through your system. And that is the science to start with. So is this different? Absolutely. One of the key things when we look at Cleanslate, and I'll share my screen here again here in a second, is the actual formulation. And what makes this special is our team of people actually have scientific backgrounds. They actually hold PhDs and doctorates, like Dory, and like some of our other collaborating physicians that are not only MDs, PharmDs, but multiple PhDs that have been in biotech. And like Dory had mentioned, when we talk about zero in, and people want to talk biohacking, well, biohacking should be done by biotech, because it's a level of science that's needed in order to understand pharmacokinetics and understand how to put ingredients together, that they work in the right amounts and the right concentration with the right quality. So when you take them, you get the right results. We don't want to just mix stuff together, mix it in a batch, throw it in a pill and say it's great because we put a bunch of ingredients together. We want them to be effective. and we want them to be beneficial. And that is our main goal. So let me go here. Let me share my screen one more time, and I'm going to show you why this is important. So we'll go here. So when we look at Cleanslate and we look at the label, you can see there's clinoptilolite. We know that there's about 300 micrograms per dose. It's actually probably higher than that, but the hard part is when you're measuring nanofragments, it's really difficult to dehydrate the liquid to measure, you know, the true amount of nanofragments, because they get dehydrated because they're really small. But what's really important, if you want to do a comparison of other zeolite products in the market and you want to call BS, right? I'll be politically correct for the first time in a long time. I won't use bad language, as my wife says. And you're looking at zeolite products, and we'll call out a couple of these here. So clear TRS and advanced TRS, as you saw, and the not ACZ Nano. ACZ Nano might be culpable in this as well, but the pure body product as well. You won't see this. You won't see potassium sorbate. You won't see sodium benzoate. All you see is water on the label. And this is a problem because, as everyone here knows, water can grow bacteria. And if you're providing someone a nutritional supplement or a wellness product or even a food that contains water and other components, which if you're selling a liquid zeolite product, whether it's naturally derived or synthetic, you have other things in the water, which means it needs to be preserved, because if it's not preserved, it can grow bacteria. And it's quite likely, give me 1 second, that when you're getting this, make sure I get the label right. All right, you're getting your Cleanslate, that you're not taking this. Now, granted, this one is empty, but I do this, and I'm not doing it now because these are too valuable in our time, so I'm not going to waste a bottle and just take it all at once. But you don't see people using the pipette and just throwing this out and going, I had a little bit in there, that's good. They don't take the whole thing at once. So what's going to happen is you take some out, you use it, you put it back in, you use it, you take some out, you use it, you put it back in. So what happens without environmental exposure each time to the environment is mold spores, bacteria, different things in your environment can get into the bottle. So if you don't preserve this bottle, you're going to cause an environment where that stuff can grow. So I wouldn't ever use another zeolite product that isn't preserved properly. Now, granted, when we use potassium sorbate, we're using natural sources, and we use the absolute minimum amount that you need to use in order to stabilize the product. And we have the stabilization analysis done. It took over 6 or 7 months? 7 months to have completed. That this product is stable on the shelf for up to 2 years. It doesn't denature, it doesn't degrade, because it's properly preserved. So it's important to make sure that you're using proper science. That's my position. We could argue it, but
Excellent.
that's what makes Cleanslate different. It's good. So where else do we want to go? That was my rant. You know, I've had that on my chest for a long time, so I'm going to want to share this with a bunch of people. But yeah.
So, Christian, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, sure. I just want to be clear on that, Clayton, that you're saying the way you develop the formulation, it sounds like you have a wide range of the nanoparticle size. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah, which you need and you want, and you can't stabilize a particle with this, because you're dealing with a natural structure, and in the process that you're doing, you can't create a specific nanoparticle. And like if you take a honeycomb and you blow up a honeycomb, right? You go kill a bunch of bees, which we don't want to do because we love honeybees. But if you blow up a honeycomb, you're not going to have exact same fragments in each one. It's not possible. This is the same way. And
Okay,
you
yeah,
want
that's
to have
great.
a broad range.
Well, it makes sense to me because the way you're showing that graph on the viruses and bacteria sizes, that if it's so small, it's going to bypass and not have the cage physical apparatus of the cage to be able to hold the metals or the other toxins that are positively charged to take it out. But when you have a wide range that's at the lowest bottom spectrum where it doesn't go through, and it can start grabbing different heavy metals and different other particulates that are not healthy for us to be in our body, to grab it like a net.
Yeah,
it's going through it.
And that's the best example, right? Or it's one of those examples. I was thinking of some other analogies for cage structures to use, but you can use a fishing net. And say you're up in Alaska and you want to catch 50-pound king salmon in the river, and you have a net that's smaller than the fish. How's that going to work for you? Yeah. It's going to suck because you can't catch the fish. Yeah. This is the same way. You don't want a cage structure that's smaller or the same size as the particles that you're trying to sequester. Right. Yeah, that does not make sense. And this is honestly one of the big problems, not just in this space, because there's a lot of, I won't call them shysters, but a lot of people that don't understand science in this space. And, like I mentioned, from the Cosiva standpoint, there's been 5 or 6 different companies that I helped start back in the day, or that created formulas for, or I've consulted on formulas. There's another company right now that, is doing some really poor stuff. And, I can't name names, but it's really disappointing just to see, some of the decisions people make for money, and make claims on stuff and have hurt people because of doing some stuff and not putting really good products out. And that's really Root's position is, one, as you watch in the rewards video, we're designed to be different. I mean, if you look at me, I'm not your typical founder. I'm not your typical looking CEO. You won't find me wearing a suit. We'll keep it real. We're built on integrity, authenticity, simplicity, and education. And so, if we don't have real science, we can't validate it. We're not going to do it. And I put a challenge out to the entire industry, and not just the MLM industry, because we're not MLM, but the entire nutrition industry, especially in the environment that we live in today. If you don't have science and you're not going to really produce products that can help people, get out of the industry. Don't do it. You're just taking people's money, and everybody wants money, but do something else.
Yeah, it's unethical. I'm glad you guys are standing out, creating the standard for the industry, especially in the zeolite industry. And there's powdered ones. I have a friend that's taken powder, and she says she can't take even a quarter teaspoon. It gives her headaches. And I said, well, it's not washed. It's not cleansed right.
Well, and part of it is with the powders. They're great in your gut. The Esdofan, Destroxin, kaopectate. There's a couple different powdered clinoptilolites. You can use bentonite, the bentonite clays that they dilute in water, so you can use some of those, and they're good in the gut. But it speaks to some of the issues, because clinoptilolite is an antidiarrheal in its powdered form. It will absorb water, and it's also going to bind a lot of toxins, and where it's very beneficial in the gut, we want to go brain and everywhere else in between. But I'll tell people, if you want to use a powdered clino, do it. But some people, if they're not well hydrated, you're going to get that headache because your body's telling you, I need more water. Because what's up here? Water. What's 70% of your body made of? Or at least 70%. Water. So
it's interesting because she's a colonic therapist. She does colonics, and she's a vegetarian, and she drinks plenty of water. She's telling me she drinks like a gallon a day, and she's still getting headaches. And the only thing that came up to me was because it's leaching metals probably in her.
There could be some of that, but the other, the funny part is that I've learned, and I'm not a doctor. I was told I wasn't allowed to become a doctor when I was 12, but the majority of the practitioners I know are as toxic as their patients, sometimes more. Just because you have a profession that you work in healthcare doesn't mean you're healthy, right? And it's one of the things for me that I look at we're getting off on a whole other rant for people that want to learn about Clean Slate today. But I think this is good information of where you want to get your information from, because a lot of
Right.
the gurus that are talked about in the wellness world, they're no more educated than the majority of the people that are doing research, on trying to find the topics that are being discussed. And they're probably more sick or more toxic than the people that are actually learning. So it's, you have to be cognizant of where you're getting your information from. And I would tell everyone to be like me. And I was having a chat with Dr. Tina, who's one of our practitioners, on our Beautiful Minds this morning. And she was asking about where to find some additional research on zeolites and infertility. And you won't find a lot of information on clinoptilolite and infertility. What you have to look at is what causes it. And that's where you want to look at the heavy metals and glyphosate in infertility. And you can go on PubMed, and you can go on, some of the research registry sources to look at the data. And Dory can speak on this because she's a metadata analysis.
I'm pulling all this stuff together. It's very time consuming to pull the information, but I've probably got a couple hundred pages now compiled.
It's the scary part that when you look at infertility, and if you watch the interview that I did with Dr. Don Huber, even though it's an hour long, I'll get that cut up, but he hits on, I think it was about the middle of talking about the infertility issues caused by glyphosate, the decrease in sperm motility in men and infertility in women, and that he called it an extinction event. Because if an organism can't breed, it will eventually go extinct. And that's where we sit currently with our exposure to glyphosate, with where the amounts we have in our body and the amounts that are in the environment that we're constantly exposed to daily, in your water, in your food, in your vegetables that you eat, in a lot of your processed foods, whether they're gluten-free and healthy, or even in our animal foods with the meat that we get, because they're eating plant sources that are loaded with glyphosate. So, I mean, we're getting just continually bombarded on a daily basis, and we're completely toxic already. And so you really have to be cognizant of your environment, do some research, or trust people that are really good at doing research. And that's one of the reasons that we have our Beautiful Minds, is that you might not have access or the desire to access the information that I like to, or that Dory does. But when you have really, and we call them Beautiful Minds for a reason. I mean, they're really, really smart people that are really good at doing what they do to gather information and portray it. And they're good looking, because Dory's good looking. I'm not, which is why I'm not on there. And so they're beautiful, really smart people. And rely on them for information. If Dory says, look, I've looked at this data and it says that, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, cancer, heart disease, neuropathy, all these things are caused by environmental toxins, and this is what all the data is showing, and I'm using this product and it's showing that we're removing all these things, and you should probably do it too, that's something you might want to listen to. Don't listen to me. I'm just a guy, but I've done this for 16 years, and I've formulated a lot of stuff in the market, and we know what we're talking about.
Hey, Clayton, I got one more question for you.
Shoot.
Do you have any lab assays, analysis on the what's coming out of the body, like hair analysis, blood, urine, after taking this product, before and after?
Well, that'd be a really good thing to look at, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Well, let's do that real quick. So let's go back here. Let's go to share, because we've done this once before, but we'll go here. And this is always the fun stuff to show. Well, and I'll protect some names to protect the innocent, because you can see some names here, but we won't use those. So don't mind them. We'll look at this one.
And as you're looking, does any of your labs show what particulates are actually coming out? What metals?
Yeah, it's down there.
Are you trying to lead me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Without the lead.
Sorry.
I'm leading you without the lead.
So this is what we like to do is pre-provocation and post-provocation. The provocation aspect is using our little friend. But you can use anything. You can use water or whatnot. So the baseline analysis that we do, if someone chooses to do this, and I have a really good relationship with a lab, these guys that give me great discounts on lab testing. So if you want to have a pre and a post done, or longitudinal study where you continually do some urine analysis to see what's coming out, you can do that. And I've got 4 or 5 people that we can do more on that are requesting it. But what we want to look at is your baseline. We want to use nothing. So we want you doing your normal process in the morning, and we'll look at what's coming out. So we can look at aluminum through arsenic and cesium and lead and mercury and nickel and platinum and all these other metals. So this was his baseline. This was a 42-year-old guy that knew he was mercury toxic. And so naturally he was excreting a 3.2 for mercury. And what's interesting is when we look at the range and the green levels here for a lot of these metals, whether we look at arsenic, if we look at, say, aluminum, and we look at mercury, and it has the green as the safe level. Let's be honest real quick, you and me, as we talk through this, there is no safe level of mercury, period. So we're good on that part, but that's what he was throwing. So we put him on 10 drops twice a day, and we had him do a second collection. And we'll look at the one where there was the big difference. So we'll go back here. So his arsenic levels went from a 21 down to a 15, but his mercury initially was at a 3.2. And this is what he's excreting. This is what's important. We want to look at what's coming out, because what this does is it helps get things out. So we'll focus on this one because it's the worst neurotoxin known to man. It shuts off glutathione production. It shuts off your methylation process, and it's the worst heavy metal known. So after a week, he goes to a 13.8. You can see here. But what's interesting is he had no negatives of throwing that much mercury out of his system. He was getting a lot healthier really, really quickly. And so we went from a 4.2 to a 13.8 in his excretion. That's over 300% increase, 350% increase in excretion of mercury in a week, which is phenomenal. We can use, let me see here.
Do you have like a 1 month, 3 months, 6 months afterwards?
No, we haven't done those with people, because typically what we're looking at is the short term. And because of the expense of testing, I think over time as a company, as we generate more revenue, I'll have some people, that we'll use as a baseline, and we'll go through some longer testing so we can kind of look at what happens as the onion peels. But typically what we're looking at is a baseline, to see how people are responding to the product and what's working. And does the product work? Which we know it does.
You kind of answered my question a little bit though. What's the actual cost of the test, and what's the type of test? Is it possible we could find a comparable test that would be feasible for us to do as members? Have someone test before they start, and then after, again, what's the actual cost of the test around about?
If you go to your doctor, I think they charge about $200, per urine analysis. With root members, it's about $75 per test. And
that's not too bad.
You do the baseline where you just pee in the cup, and then you do the follow-up. We like to do a week later, because a week gives the product a chance to really start working and allows the body to start really releasing some stuff. But if you have
I like to see it 6 months out.
Yeah, I know, and that's the fun part for people that want to do it. You can start day one, you can look at a week, and then you do another one in a couple months.
Because if it shows all green, that means it's pretty much out of your system.
Yeah, and you might see some stuff that stay in the green. You'll see other stuff that's coming out. That's the cool part. This was who we got. This is a 58-year-old guy. What's interesting here is he owns a nutritional supplement distribution company, and he's been doing work with a new supplement that he was taking in powdered form, And when I got his results back, I asked him what he'd been doing, and he's like, well, I'm using this powder. I've been using tons of it to test out, how much is beneficial. I'm like, what's the base that you're using for a powder? And he told me they were using rice bran and rice flour, brown rice flour, actually. And what's really important, if you're living the gluten-free lifestyle now, that you don't need to be gluten-free. You need to get rid of the glyphosate. So it's not a gluten issue, it's a glyphosate problem, which is number one, and this removes glyphosate. But step two, rice naturally has an affinity to bind arsenic in the environment. And you can see here with his baseline, he was at a 6.2. And then we had him do 10 drops twice a day for a week, and he's up at a 34.6. So he had 6 to 34 in a week. So 550% increase in his excretion. Barium levels went up, or barium levels came down a little bit. Barium came down, arsenic went up. And when, just asking the simple questions, like, okay, what's the source of that? He's like, I'm using this rice bran flour. I'm like, okay, that's an indicator. Now this is, I'm going to use Drayton because she's one of our community members, and she's given me the clear to do this, but I'll remove her name. And Drayton is one, she's had Hodgkin's lymphoma in the past. And so if you look at non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and leukemia, and you do some research on this, one of the primary causes is arsenic toxicity. And so we look at her baseline. She was at a 6.7. She's been through some treatment. She's been doing okay. She's been on Cleanslate for a bit. Now she's doing great. But we look at her put her on 10 drops twice a day, and then she goes from a 6.7 here to a 76.7. So that 1100% increase in excretion of arsenic in a week. And what's important to understand as well is that what's coming out of you and what's coming out of an individual will vary between each individual. And as Geyer just asked the question, he says some people do not feel so many changes when using Cleanslate, but it's still moving the toxins and metals out of your body, without you feeling it. It's absolutely correct. And that's one of the key components of this being passive, right? That because of the cage structure that we were looking at, the cages are actually grabbing onto and binding the metals while they're still in your system. So they get trapped in that cage, and then you just pee them out passively. So through that process, you are passively detoxifying your system, because with heavy metals, with glyphosate, with other environmental toxins, you don't want to make a bunch of, come get knocked loose in your bloodstream and in your system to where your body has to try to flush it all out, because we don't have the mechanisms to do it. So doing it passively, if you're not feeling anything, that's great. You don't feel gravity either, but it's here. It just is. And, the product does what it does. So you just have to pay attention to some of the things that are going on in your life, because we're seeing some of the factors that this is acting as a really, really strong anti-inflammatory, that you might see, changes, in your body that, are a direct response to inflammation dissipating and being eliminated. But they're things you might not pay attention to. So everybody's a little bit different, but you can't stop this from doing what it does. It's like a magnet, right? A magnet's going to grab onto metals naturally. It just depends on how much ability that magnet has the ability to grab onto and bind, based on its surface area, which is the same mechanism that we use with the fragments. That was a really good question. And
Mm-hmm. Any other questions about Cleanslate right now?
I have another one for you, Clayton.
go.
You already covered it last time, but it's nice to put it in here because this is a really good video that you're producing today. So if you could touch on how this is affecting viruses overall, and if at all bacteria as well.
Okay, so you're going to make me pull up more research.
Yep, this is a really good video that we're going to have.
When you're done, I want to ask you another quick question about
And
the testing too, because I just looked online, and you can get. So, what metal would you recommend?
that was a bad internet connection for David or whoever had that. So I didn't get that last part.
Yeah, Dave, type your question for Dory, David. And she'll answer it.
Yeah, then we'll get it answered. So I'm going to share my screen again because the viral concern component is prevalent now because people are scared, and that's why zero in is so important as well, to increase your dopamine and serotonin levels to overcome the cortisol that you get from being worried and scared and unsure. But clinoptilolite is very well proven as that molecular sieve. But what's also important is you don't want to create fragments that are smaller than the stuff you're trying to bind. So when we looked at that chart, you can rewind and go back to the reference range, but you can see, this is talking about the antiviral properties of clinoptilolite, published in 2005. Was received in 2004, and it was reviewed. And the research team that's doing a lot of this, you can see this is the Division of Molecular Medicine in major research university in Croatia. They have done loads of phenomenal research, to look at the benefits of clinoptilolite, partially because of what happened in Chernobyl. They dropped 500,000 tons of clinoptilolite powder over Chernobyl when it melted down to bind up a lot of the radioactive cesium and strontium that was being emitted off of that site, so it didn't completely nuke everybody as bad. But what the outline is in this study was that the influence depends on concentration, but clinoptilolite has the ability to bind viral fragments, and it traps the viral fragments, and it slows down the viral replication process. So the most powerful and important virus, and actually you can see here, and this is actually one thing I've seen a lot of really good stuff with, is herpes viruses. We've seen people that have had herpes, and like it says, they don't go away. And Dory can speak to this too, because she's smarter than I am, and she knows the research that herpes and other enteroviruses, once they're in your system, they don't go away. They'll hide, and they'll come back when you're weak, but they don't go away. And one of the things that we've seen with the use of Cleanslate and some of its predecessors, that one of its predecessors that we manufacture, the retail version that isn't as strong as Cleanslate is, we've seen some really, really interesting results with people that have had like vaginosis or different herpes zoster issues. And while they're using the product, it doesn't exist. It keeps everything at bay. And, you can look at that and go, okay, if it's binding viral particles and it's allowing the immune system to work more effectively, you're going to see, really, really good results. And that's good. Wow. David found a test for $19 per metal that's affordable for anyone. I'm going to look at that because we get 27 metals.
But look at his next comment.
Okay. Yeah. So never mind. That's out.
Too bad we can't use that. That would have been great.
But it's also $19 per metal. We have 27 metals.
Yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
In the panel. So you puked on us in text, and then you wanted to pick up the vomit. I love it. That's the beauty part of doing things live. So
So you're getting 27 tests done for $75. Is that it?
$75. Yeah, you get the baseline, and then so basically you're going to spend about $150. You get the baseline because we want the baseline to look at what's coming out before doing anything, ideally, and then we do a follow up, of using this little guy, and then looking at what the results are, as a follow up, like we were looking at for some of those other results.
That's really a good price because normally the test is around $300 for each
Yeah.
test. So that's like $600 if you want to do, a baseline and then do the next test. It's very expensive.
So if I restarted it, Clayton, I've been on it for a month. How would I get a baseline now?
Well, you're not effectively going to have a baseline like a pre-baseline. Your baseline could be, you could look at what's coming out of you currently, and then maybe you might wait a month, or you might wait a couple weeks afterwards to look and see at what is coming out at a later date, or maybe you just get one test kit because you say, okay, I want one test and I want to see what's coming out right now. So it depends on what you want to do and how you.
Is there a link or something you're going to send out to people, or have it on the website to be able to order it?
I'm creating an order site because it's becoming quite popular. People actually want to know what's coming out of them. So we'll have a site up to where people can place their orders for the lab kits, and then they'll be sent out here pretty quick. Because I've had a few inquiries.
Proof's in the pudding, man. Lab test.
It is, and this also speaks to one of the key things with being part of a community, right? Root is really based on our foundation of wellness. But as this community grows, that we want to, provide as much value to our members and our community as possible. So you're going to find, other savings in other areas, but our goal is not just focused on our wellness component. That because of having a community, just like the community that you live in, you have small businesses, you have people that have other areas of expertise. So as we bring in other geniuses and other opportunities, and we expand our scope and our value to our population, that we want to provide greater value. So from a lab testing standpoint, if we leverage our relationships, just like David was just trying to do. He's like, okay, look, I found this. Okay, great, let's look at it. Nope, can't do that. Let's find another way to do it. That we want to provide value. That's why we're not an MLM. You won't hear me pitch, this is a business opportunity. What Root is not a business opportunity. You don't have to start a business. All you got to do is share it with your friends. But our goal is to provide a great amount of value to people. One, to help you get well and stay well and function well and feel well. And if you take your 1 or 2 capsules a day of Zero In, you'll feel freaking amazing. But we want to provide that value so we can do a lot for people. And because of the revenue sharing and the community sharing network that we have, it's all monetized in a manner that you'll be compensated more than MLM companies would ever dream of paying people, because most owners of MLM companies are doing it to get paid themselves. And this is designed to benefit the community, and the company is going to make money, and everyone that participates is going to make money, and we'll help people get well doing it. This
Beautiful.
is Honesty Wednesday for the end of the month.
Wow. Well, I thought we would keep the call like we're already on the hour now. We haven't even gotten to Zero In. So, but it was.
There's been a rant.
That's okay. No, it's all good. It's all good. But let's move to Zero In, because I think this is also a really great product. Especially when we talk about cortisol levels. Like, we need to get those in line, and this is the product to help us do that, to reduce our stress. Everybody's under stress now. So has this been shipped out yet? Have you started shipping?
Zero In is shipping today. So we had some COVID delays with our packaging and with our fulfillment center, but I got confirmation last night that everything has been packaged up, and everything that has been ordered to date is shipping today. And everything going forward will be shipping every day.
I think David had a question or wanted to make a comment. Yep. David.
Will it help? When cortisone levels help balance them out, was it going to help me get rid of the fat around my stomach? Is that what causes that?
That's where a lot of the fat around the stomach aspect, a lot of it is inflammation and bloating. So you might see a lot of that go down. But also by removing a lot of the metals and toxins, you're going to see fat start to dissipate because most of it's surrounding different chemicals and toxins. And you're also going to see an improvement in your metabolic function. So you're going to start burning more calories. So if you do increase your activity, eat a little bit different, yeah, you're going to see stuff come off. And this speaks twofold, right? Like Dory was touching on, because of what we're dealing with in our environment right now, that people are really stressed, which increases cortisol. Cortisol is a stressor hormone. It causes inflammation. It causes lethargy. It shuts off your body's ability to produce dopamine and serotonin, which make you feel good. So one, you want to remove a lot of the toxins that can decrease your inflammatory responses. And last week, Dory did a really good piece on looking at, how heavy metals and environmental toxins affect cytokines and negative inflammation. But then also when you can start removing stuff, and then you can take a little capsule, 1 or 2, sometimes 3 or 4 a day, and depending upon how life is affecting you. But to allow your body to start producing dopamine and serotonin again, you get the mental clarity and focus that you dream of, but you relax, you manage stress effectively. And it's the interesting part of biology, is we are this really, really advanced bioelectrical organism, but we can short circuit ourselves. If we get stressed out, we shut off our ability to feel good. If we don't manage stress really well, we shut off our ability to feel good. So we want to manage feeling good so we can better deal with stress. And Zero In was really initially designed to focus on mental clarity and cognitive function and working throughout the day. But it's becoming really, really important, because now we have a society, and I'm not talking about a society of a couple people. I'm talking about 7.5 billion that are really stressed out right now. They're worried. And if you take care of yourself, clean things up, maybe you take some extra vitamin C, do a couple other things, and then you can make sure that your mind is right, because this controls everything. Your brain and central nervous system dictate everything else that goes on. So if you can feed yourself the components that allow that greatest neurotransmitter to be produced on demand, you'll feel really, really good. And it's like Joe Pantoliano said in Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2, woosah, you just feel good. So I haven't taken mine today. Maybe I need to relax a little bit, because I went on my rant. What else we got? We've hit an hour. We did good.
Yes, I think it's great. Anybody have any questions?
No, just great job, Clayton and Dory. Thank you, guys.
You're awesome. Welcome. You're welcome. I really am enjoying the clean slate, and the Zero In is amazing. Like I said last week, when I was kind of getting down a little bit, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, just the news and everything, reading everything. I've just stopped all that now. But I thought, oh my gosh, I have these samples here. I'll take one. And it was like, wow, within 15, 20 minutes, I felt the difference. For me, it just makes me really mellow, but yet I'm able to really focus. It's just just super mellow. I like it. I have heard somebody tell me that they took the Zero In and didn't feel anything, but they only took 1 capsule.
There's a couple components to that I found, and it's age dependent for one. And okay. I was doing some research, and it's with everything else that you do with all your stem cell work and everything else, to say, hey, here's one more thing to put on your plate. I did a little preliminary research, looking at some published data. a lot of people are actually dopamine deficient, whether it's from stress or age and not being stimulated enough. And that's a whole other conversation about making sure that women are properly stimulated. But the
Don't make me
over,
edit anything.
the over 40 crowd, especially for women, I've talked to a bunch of people, and I've heard, with the first pill or, the first day or second day, they don't feel anything. And it's primarily due to dopamine deficiency. That the first one or two, or three or four is actually raising your dopamine levels up to where normal is supposed to be. And then after day 2, day 3 or so, then you get that click. So you get, that's what you're talking about. So you've got to bring up, your normal levels to normal. If you're depleted or just deficient, it's the same thing with any other nutritional supplement, that, if you're deficient in something, taking your first dose of vitamin C isn't going to replace all your deficiencies. It's going to start that process. It's going to allow your body to start doing some stuff. And that's where Zero In's really unique in what we're seeing, because it's honestly a microdose of the components that are acting as the synergists. But it's also triggering your brain to go, oh, I know how to do that. And you just gave me the tools to do it, and I remember how to do it. So your body will start doing some of it on its own as well. I've talked to some people that have a day after residual effect, that they can take a capsule or two today and they'll still feel the same way tomorrow. And so they're able to do 2 capsules every other day. And everybody's a little bit different, but if you don't feel something, it's twofold. 1, you might be dopamine deficient, or 2, you're not using your brain. Because if you're not using this, you won't feel anything, which is kind of cool. And then, it's like, maybe I need to do more.
So wouldn't you say on that too, Clayton, that if people are having the balance of dopamine in their brains, not only that they're feeling better and less anxiety and the depression lifts, but also the addictions as well?
Yeah, you're reading my mind, Christian, because I was you just hit on what I was thinking.
The answer is I've seen that. And it's also why these were designed as siblings.
Yeah.
You get Zero In and Cleanslate, because if you can remove a lot of the heavy metals and environmental toxins that are the triggers up here for a lot of that addictive behavior, but then you can also feed in the ability to produce the neurotransmitter, which is the effect that drives that addiction. You can and we will see some really, really cool things happen for people that have addiction issues. It could be sugar addiction. And you can watch Kenny Kynock's testimonial in the Root Your Life group. You can think of fentanyl, opioids, alcohol, drugs, sex, porn, video games. You can go down the list. It's all the same classification. It's neurotoxicology, and then neurotransmitters. And that's why we hit it from both sides: remove, replenish. So
when do you think is the best time to take the Zero In?
I love it in the morning. I like, if you can, before you put food in your stomach or without food. And I like taking 2 in the morning, because then I'm good for about 12 hours. If you like going out, and I've heard from my millennials that taking 1 or 2, if you're out on the town, having some drinks, hanging out with friends, that it's amazing. And so it really depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you are an athlete and you've got a sporting event, I would take 1 or 2 before the 15, 20 minutes before the 30 minutes before the sporting event.
Oh, that reminds me. I need that certificate.
Yeah, and I'm working on the NSF stuff with the NSF. Okay. Our manufacturing lab is NSF certified, but as I spoke with the NSF also wants, because they got to get their money. They want certification, not just on the product, but every batch of the product you make, they want to certify.
I
which
see.
gets really, really expensive, which is also why it carries a lot of weight in the sporting community, because they've done a really good job of tying that together. But I'm working on making sure that we have that done.
Okay, great. All right. Well, I think we better wrap it up. It's been a great call. I want to thank everybody for joining
Can I ask a
us.
question?
Certainly.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I've been sitting waiting here to ask this question about shipping. I know you addressed it in the beginning, and it's really good news to hear that there's a lot being sent to Norway and Germany at production costs to save on the fees at the border. And you're going to hate me for this because I'm from Denmark, and what do you do there?
Is
do I get it
Denmark
from?
part of the EU?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, then you're going to be fine, because what we're doing with our logistics provider in Germany is they're picking up in Amsterdam, and they're able to ship flat rate through the entire EU.
Well,
Norway is a little bit different because Norway's not part of the EU, because they're special. For all my Norwegians, you're special. We love you. But also, yeah, if you're in the EU, it'll make it really easy.
All right. So is that just a question of ordering it normally from the website, and then it's going to be shipped from Germany?
Yeah.
Oh, that's perfect. So we can just receive it and we won't pay the. Oh, there'll be no tax on it. That's super cool. Really, really cool. Thank you so much. Just one more thing. Last time when I was on this on a presentation like this before, someone asked you if ROOT was an acronym, and you said you didn't have one.
We don't have one just for ROOT yet.
That's all right, but I have one for you if you want.
Send it.
Well, to me, ROOT stands for ridding organisms of toxins.
Oh, that's brilliant. Write that down. Oh, we have it recorded.
Okay, cool. All right. That's great.
Lars, thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thank you.
I'm writing it down.
Awesome.
He's got it on his board.
I'll think about one for Cleanslate.
By Lars.
Yeah, bye.
Yes, think about that.
Removing.
Lars, I'm putting some points in your account for that.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you.
Yana has a question. You see it?
Question about the compensation. Join as a customer and bring in other customers to become affiliates before me. Will I then lose them from my group? No. And so here's the cool part though, because if you're a customer and you refer two customers, or maybe one customer, and that customer starts telling their friends, they become an affiliate, and then you tell another, you have another customer, you'll get your email, or you can go on your back office and you can upgrade, and you don't lose anything. But everyone should get their two customers as quickly as possible. And if you're not helping people. And because, like I said, this isn't about business. If you're not telling your friends or your family about ROOT in general, but that you're mean. You're not honestly, you're not being a good human. I mean, and this is no hype. As we know, this will help you. It will help people. It is helping people. This isn't sales. This is an important part. This is my sales training, because I'm not the sales trainer. I'm really terrible at it, actually. But this isn't about sales. Zero In isn't about sales. It's about sharing. Because this helps people. Zero In helps people. Helps all kinds of people feel and function really, really well. It's not about selling. You don't have to sell someone to get a pack. They don't have to get involved in a business. They don't have to go on auto ship in order to participate. They don't have to pay to join. None of that stuff. It's like, dude, I found this stuff. It's awesome. I love it. You should try it. Or you tell your family. I'll give you a couple examples of a couple of my friends that are here in town with me. They've become customers with us, and they're starting to tell their friends. And he called his mom, and he was just telling his mom about what this does and what Zero In does. And she bought $600 in product and then said, you need to call your brother and you need to call your sister right now, because I'll pay for it. And he's like, I got 3 customers just because I called my mom. I'm like, and his mom's like 70. So it's you have to get out of the old mindset, especially the MLM mindset, because we're not MLM, we're not, but we reward people for sharing, and we're doing what Amazon does, and they reward people for sharing the same way. And we're just doing it in a manner that's honestly never been done before. Because not only are we rewarding you for sharing, but we're rewarding you for helping others share and building a greater community. And this is kind of the cool thing, is this has never been done before, not to this scale. And you're participating at the beginning of something that's kind of unique. And as we know from results, the timing's right, and the results are legit.
Absolutely.
And I'm kind of passionate about it.
Well, thank you, Clayton. I mean, I have my entire family on it, even down to my little grandchildren, and to me, it's so important to get the message out, I tell all my family and friends, like, hey, you guys need to look at this, seriously need to look at this. And when I finish this document that I have for you guys, you're going to be blown away, because then you'll see, like, I had no idea when I started in the beginning of this, just how heavy metals impacts your body. I didn't even think for 1 minute that it even had heavy metal. I never thought about it. I thought, oh, heavy metals, that's like lead paint and stuff like that. I really never looked at the research until I had to, until I started, because of the work that I do. And we were looking with, like at autistic children, and then just your stem cell function alone, the stem cells, this is like it's the repair mechanism for your body, and it's not going to work right if you've got heavy metals. That's just the bottom line. So this is like,
I thought we're talking about a rock band, Metallica or something.
Yeah, no. But anyways, I think we should probably end the call now, because it's running over time. And again, I just want to thank everybody for getting on. It was a great call, like usual. Thank you, Clayton. Thanks for all the great questions. Does anyone, before I close it off, does anyone have anything else to say, or any other comments they'd like to add to it?
Yeah, just me a reminder for the UK for a delivery, Clayton, because we're coming out of the EU.
Yeah, I just got this note. You guys can't see it, but
What's it say?
our Glogistics and Ascendia, that is our, we can probably stop recording this, but I'll add it.
Okay.
But